Ryan here, host of the Fightlete Report. Make sure to check out fightlete.com for all exclusive content, including exclusive MMA articles and interviews such as this one. And right now, introducing my guest on the show. Of course, we're talking to Cage Aggression MMA promoter Mike Goodwin on the Fightlete Report, and he's going to be talking about his upcoming events, weekend of events, Cage Aggression 30, Triple Day, 1 through 3, and this is the first time it's a 3-weekend event, March 25th through 27th, Davenport, Iowa, and we appreciate you being on the show, Mike.
Yeah, no, man. Again, I appreciate you having me. Like I said, I follow you guys, and you do some pretty awesome interviews with a lot of big names. So I appreciate you taking the time for me.
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, you have a huge, weekend of events coming up. And, I've followed Cage Aggression for a little while now and seen, a lot of the different fighters I cover from the events close to me are also featured on your cards as well. And so, talk about a little bit how Cage Aggression has developed over the past couple of years.
Yeah, man. So for those that don't know, I actually, it's been a decade now, but I got introduced to the sport. I had the opportunity to work for the IFL. Remember the old team sport? Pat Miletich had the Silverbacks. So I was introduced to MMA with, all I was the driver. I just drove the guys around. But this organization, they sent me to like Connecticut, New Jersey, and Chicago. And so I was introduced to the sport with like big production and big names, and I was instantly hooked, man. And so when they went out of business, I wanted to somehow stay involved in the sport. So I started going around to a lot of the local promotions. After doing that for about a year, I was just like, why not try to do what they do on TV, but at a local level? Right. Get more involved with the fighters and go in and interview them and go to the gyms. And the next thing you know, man, here we are 10 years later. We've helped guys get in the UFC, and I've built some phenomenal relationships. And now looking back, I never really had an end game, or I'm not a manager. I'm not a coach. I've never fought. Really, my vested interest is as a fan, and I try to build the shows as if I was buying a ticket, what I would want to see.
Definitely, and we can definitely appreciate that. I'm, of course, a big fan of the regional MMA scene, and definitely know what you're striving to become, what you strove to become, and where you are today.
Thanks, man.
Talk about, obviously the events. Day one, we have headlined by Rakim Cleveland versus Parnell Davis. Heavyweight main event, we got day 2, LFA veteran Brandon Jenkins defends the 165-pound title for Cage Aggression MMA against Jonathon Thompson. The day 3 main event features Kenny Robertson versus Dante Schiro for the Cage Aggression welterweight title. All 3 of these main events are going to deliver, in my opinion. They're very
I think so too, man. I think so too. One thing that kind of, I guess, has become a staple for Cage Aggression is we host a lot of 2-night events. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point where if I put out a 1-night event, I start to see comments where people say it's only 1 night. Right. And I'm like, only, but so we've done now 13 2-night events over the course of 10 years. And, here we go through this whole COVID pandemic mess, and naturally a lot of states are shut down. Yeah. And we got a small window of opportunity in Iowa to still host the events last year. And in some crazy way, man, it like opened up the floodgates. And I was given the opportunity to work with so many different fighters from all over the country. And it really allows me to put better fights together when I've got such a big interest. We've got, I want to say last year we did 3 2-night events back to back to back, 3 months in a row. And I may be a little off on the numbers, but I got to work with like 125 different fighters from 16 different states. So, here we go. My method has always been to try to somehow top the event before the last one, and I've tried to do that every year. And so we do 3 2-night events, and here we go into March, and I'm like, what are we going to do different? And with so many fighters really needing to fight right now and really trying to create more opportunities, I'm not afraid of hard work. So I'm like, why not do the first 3-night event? There's so many guys and girls that want to be a part of it now, which is humbling to say the least. I said, screw it, let's give it a shot. And, the names started coming in and the fights started coming together. And I feel like, man, up and down the cards, all 3 nights are just awesome matchups.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all those three main events, and then of course, talk about the cards, and obviously you find out how you find so much talented fighters to stack them. Like, what are you doing to scout them and kind of like get your matchmakers, and what are they doing as well?
Sure. I've been blessed to be able to work with a lot of different managers.
Mhm.
I've got great relationships with the fighters. It's always important to me that, by the time we get to a show, I feel like I've talked to these guys and girls and graphics and visuals and all the things I'm working on, that by the time we get to an event, I feel like I have, 40 new friends. And as we know in this game, unfortunately on fight night, I've got to watch half of my friends lose.
Yeah.
And so my thing is that people are going to leave there, bumming because they lost, but I want to make it a great experience for them. I want the weekend to be a great experience. I want them to feel like they were taken care of and appreciated. And I think just trying to keep that mentality, I've been able to work with so many awesome coaches and managers now that when I post an event announcement, for March, for example, I thought I was going to be able to provide so many opportunities that I was telling gyms, yeah, I got you. I can get your whole team on. And then I started compiling a list of interest. And by the time I started building March, I had over 350 names, on these spreadsheets. And man, it's amazing. I wish that, I wish there wasn't the business side of things, because I'd love to do a show every weekend.
Right.
I love this. I love to see it all come together, but there is that stinking business side of things. But yeah, man, I don't know what the secret sauce is. I think just really trying to be fair and take care of people as best as I can with what we have to work with. And over the years, I've built these relationships that now when I post an event announcement, people just want to be a part of it, which is awesome.
And talk about some of the guest commentators you have for each night. I know Jeffrey Wilson, who helped introduce us. He's one of your mainstay commentators, but you have Pat Miletich, Jens Pulver, among others, that are going to be part of
Yeah.
these nights.
Yeah, I don't like to share the behind the scenes negative or the business side, but the reality is that March has always been our big event of the year, because it's tax time. People want to get out. They've got cabin fever from the winter. So March is when we typically would host our 2-night events. And, we would get upwards of almost 3,000 people there.
Wow.
And due to COVID, right now, they've limited us to 600 people. And, I could sit and I can dwell on, what could be, or how big the event could be in terms of seating. But I'm just happy to have 600, because a lot of states are still at 0. So when this whole thing hit, I said, how am I going to still be able to pay for this level of show without taking things away or without taking things from the fighters, and still put on that same production value and everything with only 600 seats? So what we did was we built a pay-per-view platform now to try to bridge the gap a little bit. But what's always been very important to me is, these fans, they come for a specific fighter. That's how this works, and they buy the pay-per-view for a specific fighter. So it was very important to me that when we built the pay-per-view platform, very similar to tickets, when you go on and buy the pay-per-view, you can actually select the fighter that you're supporting, and they get a portion of every buy under their name, which has been gigantic in keeping the train moving. So, but on top of that, I also know that when you're at the live event, it's a really cool experience. It's a real cool energy. So how do we add some elements to the pay-per-view? So like you said, we were able to get some Hall of Fame legends to call the fights. They're obviously very knowledgeable. That's their life. So they know what they're looking at when they're watching 2 guys or 2 girls fight. But here's the really cool part. If you buy the pay-per-view from home, not only do you get to watch the fights and listen to these guys, but we have interactive live commentary. So let's say, for example, mid-fight, you don't know what this guy's trying to put this other guy in, and as far as a submission, you can literally type right there to Pat Miletich, hey, what's he going for right now? And to really get the fans engaged, even though they're at home and not at the event. So, yeah, man, I think it's been a growing experience, and it's really cool, because whether you do buy a ticket and are able to come to the show, or whether you buy it at home, we're trying to make it just more than just fights. We're trying to make it an experience.
Yeah, and I think that has a big incentive from the pay-per-view sales for the fighters, because they do have a bonus that's awarded the one who has the most sales as well.
Absolutely, man. The show's over, and now we're all kind of riding that buzz on Monday and Tuesday after an event. But I mean, what's cooler than I get to send out commission checks for tickets? I get to send out commission checks for every pay-per-view buy. It's really cool, man. I'm a firm believer that everybody has to get a fair share of the pie for things to work, to be successful. And our events last year, when we had 40 fighters, we had 38 out of 40 fighters that had buys under their name. So it shows me that the system works, and it shows me that the fans do want to support the fighters, even if they're far away, or if they can't come to the event, or if they didn't feel safe. Whatever the case may be, we're still putting things into place where they can benefit from their fan support.
For sure, yeah. No, you're doing such a good job over there. Really, keeping the regional MMA scene alive. I see.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Let's talk about the day one. You have the Rakim Cleveland. We fought for PFL against Parnell Davis. Easy one to have as your main event, but you also have 145-pound Blake Bilder versus Cain Lugar, and that's a great matchup. So day one is stacked on its own.
Yeah, that's huge, man. I when I write up their fights descriptions, I firmly believe that both of those guys will be in the big show someday. They have the work ethic. They have the teams behind them. They have the skills. Blake and Cain, he's from the area. So what's great about Cain is that he wants those tough opponents. He wants those fights that are going to get him to the bigger stages, which is ultimately our goal, is to help guys move up to the bigger shows. And opponents like that are going to do it. And same thing for Blake. I mean, Blake's never lost a fight. He's never tasted defeat as an amateur and now as a pro. It's a phenomenal matchup. Could easily be main event as well.
Definitely. And then, previously at Cage Aggression 28, we had Trace and Engelkes defeated Tyler Scott, first round submission, co-main event. He was a fighter that was based in Northern Illinois. We got to see him XFL promotions, and before he went off to try and think at the MMA lab. So, now he's fighting a triple threat day 2 against Wesley Scott, and we're very excited. So how excited are you to see his second pro fight, what he does to build off the first one?
Yeah, man. That's another thing that's crazy, is that there's milestones in the fighters' careers, whether it's their amateur debut, their pro debut, their first title fight, their retirement fight, their coming out of retirement fight. There's all these milestones in MMA for these fighters. And naturally, it makes sense from a business perspective for the fighter to pro debut at his home area, because that's one of those milestone fights. Due to COVID, and actually even not due to COVID before, when a fighter from a different area wants to pro debut on our show, that's pretty humbling, man. That means a lot to me, because that's something that they'll never forget. That's something that I'll never forget. And there's nothing better for me than seeing somebody that I got to work with on TV in the UFC or Bellator or whatever. So, these pro debuts, I get excited about them, man. I do. And the crazy thing too is that I'm getting guys that are making their pro debuts versus legitimate talent. They're not taking their first 3 or 4 fights for somebody they know they can beat. They want to be tested. So Trace came out though, and he absolutely dominated that first fight quickly. I wanted to bring in somebody that had a little bit more experience, especially on the ground. And somebody that really surprised me when I got to work with him, and Wesley. So that's another one of those fights where, both guys have to really be ready to come in here and do what they say they're going to do, or they're not going to make it. So Trace has incredible wrestling. I think personally that he's another one of those guys that has what it takes. He's in the gym every day. This is his life. So, he trains with guys that are in Bellator and the UFC. Same thing with his opponent. He's training with Kenny Robertson, who fights on Saturday night. 9-time UFC vet. His last 9 fights were in the UFC, and that's his training partner. That's the other cool thing, is to see kind of full circle all these guys training together, making each other better. It's pretty cool.
Definitely. It's going to be an exciting night. And then, of course, talk about, arranging a safe environment during the pandemic. Obviously, for these events, it's not easy, and how challenging and rewarding it is, and how rewarding has it been as well. I mean, you always have those safety and security issues of trying to keep the fans and fighters apart before this pandemic. You know, I've seen being backstage at a few events myself, and so it's just only heightened by the current situation we're in.
Yeah, it's, it's tough, man, because everybody's kind of in a funky place, that people are just different right now. So what I've learned through this whole thing, though, is that whether somebody likes a mask or not, whether somebody, likes the crowds, the restrictions, the spread out seats, there's all these new things going on right now. I pretty much said that I was willing to do whatever I had to do at all costs to continue to host these events. Obviously, this isn't strictly driven by money, because I just told you I've taken nothing out of the shows. I've actually added more talent and more things with such a limited seating capacity. So the fan in me is always going to win when it comes to budgets and stuff like that. But I guess my mentality is that this is for the fighters. This is, when we're hosting 60 fighters from all over the United States, yeah, some of these restrictions stink, and you don't have to agree with them. But at the end of the day, it's what we have to do right now to still give these opportunities to the fighters and to still have these events. So I guess without getting into too much of opinion, I've been okay with it, and I've been okay with, buying the masks and doing all this extra stuff to make it work, because I think at the end of the day, it means more to everybody when you can show them, like, look, I'm not just saying, hey, I'm trying to do this for the right reason. I can actually show everybody I am,
Definitely commend you on that as well. Another fight I'm excited about is you have Javier Coronado, 2-0 against James Dunn. And so talk about how he's impressed you so far and the decision to bring Javier in.
Well, unfortunately, I'm forced to give you some bad news. Javier is out. He dislocated his shoulder. He was sent to the hospital. He was crushed, man. I talked to him, checked in on him, and he said, man, I don't back out of fights. I didn't have a choice here. But one thing that's important to me too is I notice sometimes, let's say that you've got a local fighter on the card, and then he's fighting a guy from out of state or something, and then the local guy gets hurt, and all of a sudden they scrap the whole fight. And I'm never really, I get it from a business perspective, but to me, that's not right, because the guy from out of state, they committed to you. They've been training. They've been doing everything they were supposed to do. So to me, it's my job to fill that fight. So when this happened, what we actually did is we moved James to Thursday night, James Dunn, and he's going to be fighting Luis Rivera from out at Jackson Wink in New Mexico. So we were able to kind of move some things around and still create a very well matched competitive fight. It's pretty awesome of Luis. It's pretty awesome of Luis to take that fight too, because it is his pro debut, where, James has more experience at the pro level. But at the end of the day, they both like it. They both are happy with the fight, which makes me happy. Nothing makes me happier than when both guys really like the matchup. Makes for a great fight. So, yeah, we're going to get, hopefully if timing's right and he gets all healed up, we'll get Javier back maybe in May. We've got a 2-night event scheduled in May. So right now, he had to step out of this one.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing him. I know he's done a lot of great things. Northern Illinois Combat Club guy. We followed him in XFO and also the EAFL as well. So we're looking forward to that fight. My next question is, you had Zak Ottow, as a UFC veteran. He main evented Cage Aggression. So talk about that. You get UFC veterans, involved with Cage Aggression when they're available to fight. He won defeating Clarence Jordan by armbar. And also the same night we had another middleweight who was impressing, a guy from Illinois, and Gabriel Mota. We had a TKO. So any idea you want to see them on the next card?
Yeah. So it's funny you bring up Zak. I want to say maybe like the first few years of me doing this, when I would look at like the UFC and Bellator and the people involved in it, they're so untouchable, man. I was so intimidating, and it's like I would never be able to talk to those guys. And the thing started kind of getting a little bigger, and then I'll never forget it, man. I had the opportunity to host Zak Ottow versus Zach Mickelwright. Zach Mickelwright was a WEC fighter at the time, and before they sold, and when they got in the cage and they fought, that's when I kind of sat back and I kind of was like, man, this could actually be something. We could actually take caged aggression and do something with it, because it was really the first time in hosting events where I had two guys in there that, as a fan, it just blew my mind. And I really thought that was kind of a turning point for caged aggression, where I felt like we could bring in legitimate talent at a high level. So I've got kind of a soft spot in my heart for Zak, both Zaks. Yeah. It was a great fight that night. Ottow did not actually win that fight. Ironically, he won, I want to say 3 or 4 after that, and then ends up in the UFC doing great. So since Zak's left the UFC at 170, he wants to try the 185-pound weight class and kind of work his way back up there in that weight class. So I get the opportunity to work with him again, which is awesome. And then Chicago Fight Team, I've been trying to work with them for a while now. Sometimes fights just don't work out, events don't work out. So I got the opportunity to work with Gabe, and Bobby Downs is kind of one of our veterans for caged aggression. He was an amateur champion, made his pro debut with us, and is kind of fighting through the pro ranks. So I really didn't know what to expect in that fight, but Gabe's hands of stone, he's got him, man, because he came out and he overwhelmed Bobby, and he put on an impressive performance, man.
Oh yeah, I've seen his first round knockouts before. Very vicious.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe a possible meeting between those two in the future.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be awesome. I'd love to have those guys back. I got James on there. So I was happy to at least get one of their guys back so far, for the March event. And that's been the other challenge too, man. There's so many teams and gyms that I want to work with, but there's only so many spots, and it's got to make sense, and matchups got to make sense. So it's never anything personal. I'm just trying to put the best fights together I can.
Definitely. And then the last match I wanted to talk about was the Kenny Robertson versus Dante Schiro for the cage aggression welterweight title.
Man, so just to try to make a very long story short, Kenny was going to be Eric Wisely's retirement fight. Okay. Obviously, Eric, UFC vet as well, worked with him many times, great guy. He was the 155-pound champ. He was going to move up to 170. We had a vacant title, and he was going to fight Kenny for his final fight ever. And a week before the show, Kenny got COVID. And so, and he wasn't sick, man. He's a teacher, and he had to get tested, and he just had it. So obviously we had to make the right decision and not have him down. The next show, it didn't work out. Dante ends up winning our vacant title, and which, man, he's impressive, because I feel like Dante's like this, man. He's like on this climb where, he's so close that, and he's such a grinder, that to be able to fight somebody like Victor Moreno, who's been around the block, man, a serious veteran, and he actually dominated that fight. So to bring in somebody like Kenny now, to finally get that opportunity, the timing finally worked. I'm thinking positive. Nobody's getting COVID the week before the show. I absolutely love that fight, because Kenny has raw, natural, in-your-face talent. I've wanted to work with him ever since he was in the UFC. I'm a giant fan, and I don't want to say like, he's made it and he's just there, where Dante's kind of, on the rise. I don't want to say one guy's hungrier than the other, but man, it's really going to show me where Dante's at to fight somebody like that with that level of experience and that in your face. Dante's got incredible wrestling. It's just a stellar fight, man. And I really hope that the winner of that fight gets a call from somebody, man, because I think they deserve it.
Yes. And then last thing I want to ask is, we got a big card this Saturday, UFC 259. So I'm sure you'll be watching, as all the fight fans do. Any interest, any thoughts about the main event out of Sanya and Blachowicz? Blachowicz is
how do you bet against him, man? Yeah. How do you bet against him? You know what I did? I bet on the young and hungry, in the Super Bowl, which ended up being a snooze fest. I know in my brain, you got to pick the GOAT. You got to go with experience. How do you bet against him? And I did. I bet against Brady. I lost. Right. And so I'm not doing that anymore, man. I mean, right now, how do you bet against him? I don't even know if anybody could sell me on it. What's your thoughts?
I think Adesanya wins this fight, but it's gonna be more like the Kevin Gastelum fight. I don't know if it's gonna be as close. I see a 5-round decision.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going with 5-round decision. I see it being a tough one, but
yeah.
I see Adesanya, winning.
So you see it being a grind. He's gonna have to grind it out. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that, man.
I think Adesanya, pulls ahead in the 5th round, for sure. Like the 4th round, it's gonna be close, tied. After the 4th, going to 5th, it's tied, and Adesanya's gonna pull another one. I don't think it's gonna be as crazy of a fight as the one with Gastelum was. It's hard to top that one, but I think it comes, it's that kind of fight.
What about the Nunez fight?
I got Nunez winning.
Yeah, I do too, man. It should be an electric one. It should be a good fight. Definitely, it should be. Yeah. Sometimes the fights on paper that are going to be the best, as you know, end up not being, and then vice versa. So, I'm really looking forward to the card.
Yeah, I'd say Amanda Nunez on that one, and I also have Aljamain Sterling with the upset against Jan. So.
Okay.
We'll see what happens this Saturday.
Yeah, very cool, man. Yeah, that's a great card.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, when you see those fights, that makes you get amped up and ready for your card. You feel like you're like almost like the mini Dana White and a mini UFC.
There really is nothing. Like, I get asked all the time, even from people that have been doing this way longer than me, like, how do you do a 2-night event? And now, are you crazy? A 3-night, 3 weigh-ins and 60+ fighters. But to be honest, man, it is very stressful. It's overwhelming at times, but I cannot explain the feeling on fight night when everything comes together and everything that we've been building and promoting over the last couple months. And I sit down and I get to watch the show. I mean, from a fan perspective, there's no feeling that there's no way I can really describe it. And that's the problem. I think, with like fighters, they have it in their blood. And so even though maybe for whatever reason it's time to retire, they can't leave it. It's just in them. And that's how I feel now on the outside of the cages. I've been doing this so long, and I love when the shows come together that I don't know if I could do anything else and be happy.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate you, Mike, for being on the Fight Report. Everybody checked out Cage Aggression 30 Triple Threat, Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3, March 25th, March 26th, March 27th, Davenport, Iowa. And go to Cage Aggression website to make sure to buy your tickets or to order the pay-per-view. If you have the details, please share them.
Yeah, man. You can go to cageaggression.tv. Tried to make it real simple. Cageaggression.tv. You can buy that. I mean, it's streaming worldwide anywhere, so you can watch it from anywhere. You can go to Caged Aggression Events. That's kind of our home site. But really, just Google Caged Aggression. Facebook, all the social media sites. We're pretty much everywhere, or we try to be.
Definitely. Well, Mike, we appreciate you being on the Fight Report, and best of luck. Hope all the events go well. Hope everybody is COVID-free and ready to throw down at the end of the month. We appreciate you being on the Fight Report. And
hey, man, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much, man.
Anytime. Take care, brother.
All right, later.